Conver here. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking all about Tarot de Marseille. I'm making this video because I have had a lot of Tarot de Marseille related questions. I've been getting them over the years, but very specifically over the last 2 to 3 months I've had more of an influx of them on my videos. I've also sort of commented on other people's TDM videos, like answering people's questions about the system on Instagram and in DMs and things like that. So I was like, you know what, and I don't mind. I love answering people's questions and giving people advice about resources and things, but I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna do a beginner's resource video. I don't know if I've done one of these before, probably should have checked. There's probably other people that have done them as well, but because I keep specifically getting asked as well, I'm just going to do one for my own channel. You may want to watch it, you may not, I don't mind. I'm assuming if you are here, it's because you're interested in Tarot de Marseille. And for the sake of brevity, I will probably be using TDM for short throughout the video as well, just because Tarot de Marseille is a little bit of a mouthful to say over and over and over again. Be a fun drinking game though, to take a shot every time I said Tarot de Marseille. So the way this video is going to be structured, I will try to remember to put, I nearly said tractors. I will not be putting tractors in this video. I'm not a farmer. I will try to remember to put chapters in this. And actually, I'm going to write it right at the bottom in big letters, chapters. So I remember, so that you can jump to whichever part is of most interest to you, especially if you are coming back to this video as a resource. This is not going to be like a 100% fully comprehensive, all of the Tarot de Marseille resources, all of the Tarot de Marseille decks. That's not what this video is. This video is my personal recommendations and tips for starting Tarot de Marseille and like building a practice and, you know, starting to learn it as a system. And you might be coming here with no tarot experience whatsoever, as in you want to just learn Tarot de Marseille. You've not ever read with Thoth, you've never read with the Smith-Waite or any other systems. You're just interested in Tarot de Marseille, and that's why you're here. Or you may be coming with some other tarot knowledge, which is, I think, a lot of people that I've spoken to, you know, that have been asking me questions, are people that read Smith-Waite and want to sort of try learning Tarot de Marseille as a new thing to be doing. So without further ado, the structure of this video, because I've already distracto girl, that's me. So I will start off with my own personal little sort of tips and hints about starting Tarot de Marseille. Any advice I can give you from, again, this is going to be from my personal perspective, because that's the only perspective I can give, right? And then I will jump into the resources, and the resources will come in the order of books. It will then go, and I will then go onto YouTube channels, Instagram accounts, blogs, and then I will talk about some decks. I did consider talking about adding in podcasts, but I haven't really found like a Tarot de Marseille specific podcast. Granted, I haven't really looked that hard for one, but if I do find any in the future, I will talk about them and recommend them undoubtedly in my favorites, my monthly favorites videos, because I do always talk about podcasts in those videos, because I'm obsessed with podcasts. I listen to them more than anything else. I consume podcasts more than any other medium at this point, and I have done for years. It's my fave, because you can like learn and enjoy and be entertained whilst doing other things, multitasking, because squirrel brain. So I'm going to go straight into my tips, and then and then we'll go into the resources. So I was just looking at the timestamp. It's 4 minutes. 4 minutes of preamble and waffle. I don't know if that's too much, but like I said, I'll have timestamps so people can just like be like, get on with it, and jump straight to the tips. Just, if you're new to my channel, I'm a waffler and I get distracted. It's just the way my brain's wired, and you will either jive with that or you won't, and it's all good. It's fine. If you're not into it, I won't be offended. Feel free to leave. I don't mind. Okay, so tips. So my first tip for learning Tarot de Marseille is what I would usually say to anyone learning tarot, which is to keep it simple, right? So you probably just want one deck, one Tarot de Marseille book, maybe two if you're looking at getting a workbook, so a tarot book. Some tarot books are just books that talk about the tarot as a system and then the meanings of the cards, right? And then some tarot books are tarot workbooks. Kim Huggins's Tarot 101 is one of the ones that always comes to mind for me because I really like that book. And then some books are a combination of both a bit of a workbook with exercises and journal prompts and things like that, and then also the card meanings. Joan Bunning's Learning the Tarot is one of those that I think of when I think of books like that. So I would say you want a book, a workbook probably, but it's not 100% essential, and then a journal, and obviously a deck, like I said, at least one, possibly two. If you're going a little off-piste and you're getting a tarot deck that is quite sort of different, and this usually applies more to Rider-Waite-Smith because a lot of the Marseille decks kind of stick to a very specific thing, and there's a reason for that I will go into as well. You might want to get a very classic old school style traditional Marseille and then a modern one, but I would say you're probably fine with just a modern one. So that's my first tip. Keep it simple. You want one book, maybe one workbook, a journal and a deck, because you can get overwhelmed if you have too many resources. You don't want to leave it there. Further down the line you are definitely going to want to look at other resources and build off of that, but I think we have a tendency to want to buy all the books and then we're like, oh, where do I begin? So keep it simple. And like I said, I would say that to learning any tarot system. My second tip is to keep in mind that all Tarot de Marseille are pip decks, but not all pip decks are Tarot de Marseille. Tarot de Marseille is a very specific system where each of the pip cards, so that's the cards ace through 10, have a very specific layout. They have a very specific pattern. So unlike Rider-Waite-Smith, where you have a situational or a scenic card that will depict one particular interpretation of a meaning of that card, a Two of Swords will have two swords. A Three of Cups will have three cups. There are some elements of sort of decoration with foliage and the like, and various modern interpretations of the Marseille can change that up a little bit, but for the most part they have a very set pattern. A pip deck that is not a Marseille would have like two swords, but they would not be in a particular arrangement. So I probably should have brought some out some examples just to show you, but I forgot. I thought I was as best prepared as I can be, but I'm not. So here's a really good example. We have Three of Swords, and as you can see we have two swords creating this almost sort of oval shape, and then the sword pointing up through the middle. Sometimes the swords in the deck will point down, sometimes they will point up. It depends on the deck. It can sort of flavour your reading, the meaning, if you let it. It's up to you. So that's a Marseille arrangement of the Three of Swords, right? Either sword up or sword down. I've seen both and I have both, right? But a pip deck would have just three swords. It might be three swords in a row. It might be three swords stacked on top of each other. I've seen pip decks where the Three of Swords are arranged more like they would be on the Three of Swords in a Smithwaite, where they're all jabbed into the heart, except maybe they don't have a heart. I've even seen pip decks that are all pippish, but they get to the Three of Swords and they actually do have three swords sticking in a heart, which sort of throws me off. But yeah, so all Marseille are pip decks, not all pip decks are Marseille. So you want to make sure that you do actually have a Marseille deck. Now some decks will have Marseille in the name, but they are not Marseille. And two examples I can think of off the top of my head are two French decks, and one of them is the Feel Good Tarot de Marseille, or the Tarot de Marseille Feel Good. I do have a walkthrough of that one. It has some Marseille elements, but mostly it's just a straight up pip deck. Another one that comes to mind is Frédéric Aguit's Tarot de Marseille Revisité, where he's a French tattoo artist and he has a really fun pip deck that I would like. It's really it's really cute. But it's the pips are not in a Marseille arrangement, but it has Marseille in the name, so it does you need to be careful with that. Okay, you want to make sure, look at a walkthrough, look at photos. You want to make sure that all of the pip cards are Marseille in order to learn the Marseille system. As an addendum to that, I will say, you know, Tarot de Marseille, I see it as its own system, and that's going to go on to my next tip, which is tip 3. Forget what you know about tarot. If you read Thoth, if you read Smithwaite, if you read some other sort of system that kind of does its own thing, like maybe the Chrysalis Tarot or some other, I don't know, the Dreams of Gaia Tarot, forget what you know, right? You want to be starting from a blank slate. I do know people, even people that I am really good friends with, who transpose their Smithwaite meanings onto any deck that they use, whether that is a Thoth, whether that is a Pip, whether that is a Marseille. They will transpose it. I personally don't think that works. I don't think transposing Thoth or Smithwaite meanings onto a Marseille deck works, specifically because I see the numerology for a Marseille deck different to the numerology of a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, for example. A really good look at this is someone who is doing this at the moment, and that is Jack Channock over at the Jack of Wands blog. He has a series that he's doing this year where he is learning the Tarot de Marseille system, and actually one of his first posts is he talks about wanting to forget everything that he knows about tarot, because he's incredibly well versed in both the Smithwaite. He's actually written a book about it, which I did a review about last week. It's brilliant. And he also reads Thoth. He did a deep dive into the Thoth system and learnt that as well. But he's never tackled Marseille, and he was like, I need to come at this with fresh eyes. And I agree. Forget what you know. Whoop! Just let it go. Let it go. Start from a blank slate, because you're only going to confuse yourself. I think I think it helps to see it as a different system, as if you would, you know, the Lenormand is an entirely different system. Working with a particular oracle deck, for example, the Wild Unknown Alchemy Oracle is its own system. Just to give an example, you wouldn't read well, some people do read Lenormand like tarot, and I'm always like, oh no, but you know, I mean, you do you. It's not the end of the world, but they're different systems is what I'm saying. So you know, forget what you know. Tip 4 I have is to start learning with the pips, ace through 10. Don't start with the majors, with the triumphs, with the trumps. Firstly, if you do have some tarot knowledge, there is quite a bit of crossover with the major arcana. Obviously, they're more similar than they're not. The pips is where it really changes up, right? And also, that's where you're going to probably be getting most stumped. So start with the pips. Also, there's more pips, and I know that sounds counterintuitive. Start with the pips, there's more of them. But what I mean is that if you get au fait with the pips, you're really going to start to feel like you're tackling this thing, right? Because that's the meat and potatoes of Tarot de Marseille. And I say that as someone who sometimes also only reads with the major arcana, with the trumps of the Tarot de Marseille. If I'm doing a tirage en croix, which is a type of tarot spread, I will often just read with the trumps, with the major arcana, but I will also often do a second layer of cards with the pip cards to add additional information on top of that. But again, you want to be able to read with the entire deck, and then should you choose to just once you've got the system under your belt, that you actually just like reading with the trumps, which is a very French way of reading, then you can do that. Try it, you know. Tip number so that's tip number 4. Tip number 5, if you're going to start learning Tarot de Marseille, and I'm saying like you know, forgetting what you know, there's a really good way of going about it, which is what Yoav Ben-Dov would call table and image. It's a bit like saying book meanings and intuition, as it were, but it's a bit more specific that. So when Yoav Ben-Dov talks about table, he is coming from, you know, your numerology, your elemental associations. If you had a table of those, you know, of those associations, what would they be? And you marry that with the image. What are you seeing in the image? What is going on in the card? And I'll be talking about pulling the Squid Cake Marseille again, but the book does this a little bit, which is why I really like it. So I will talk about that, but I'm going to be talking about that later. So an example would be, I will pull another pip card. Okay, we've got the 2 of rods or the 2 of batons, the 2 of wands here. Okay, so table would be your numerology, your 2. What do the 2s mean to you? That rhymes. Balance, duality, partnerships, all those kinds of things that you think of when you think of the 2. There's many other words that you can, I'm just giving you a handful of associations or keywords. But then what are the batons? What are the wands? The wands are fire. What does fire mean to you? Is it passion? Is it will? Is it creativity? And then you can even go to the suit, as in, what do rods do? What do wands do? Wands are magical. Rods can be used as to bludgeon. They can be used, wands are wood. They can be the material that you build things with, right? Which is where people sometimes get confused with how can the wands also mean work, and that's because they can represent material resources just in a slightly different way that coins do, which is more sort of monetary resources, right? So that would be the table. And then when you get to the image, you're looking at the literal image. You're taking what you're seeing on the card. So what do we see? We see a great big X. And a really good example of this is if you were asking just a quick yes or no question, which some people will say is not a good thing to do with tarot, but I feel like Marseille and playing cards both lend themselves quite well to yes or no questions, because if I was asking a yes or no question, I would see this X as a no, as a you're being crossed, it's a barrier, right? For example, because I'm taking the image, right? So you marry that with whatever your question is. Obviously the question then gives context. So table and image. We'll start with the pips and use table and image. So for me that would be, table would be the numerology, the elemental association, as well as the actual suit itself, the actual item of the suit. Is it a cup? What do cups do? Is it a wand or a baton? What do batons do? Is it a sword? What can swords do? Do you see what I mean? As well as metaphorically, where we think of a sharp wit or a cutting tongue, right, with a sword, which is air and communication. It can also be, what do swords do? They physically can cut and slice and jab, and they can benight someone in a ceremony. You could be, benighted. So I think that's the easiest way to come at it. The way that Tom Benjamin talks about it is, and then the image, what you're seeing, sorry. But Tom Benjamin I'm going to be mentioning Tom Benjamin a lot. Take a shot every time I say Tom Benjamin in this video because it's coming up. Is that he talks, I think he even has it in his Instagram profile, exoteric tarot, because when we talk about Tarot de Marseille, it was I believe it was Atea or was it de Gabelin, I can't remember, one of the two, who gave us all of the started to put the esoteric and cartomantic and other sort of not fortune tellery, sort of more esoteric meanings. People had been using Tarot de Marseille for fortune telling and gaming for years, because people use all sorts of things for fortune telling and divination. But it didn't have astrological associations, it didn't have Kabbalistic associations, it didn't have all these extra things that have been layered upon, like with the Golden Dawn and all that lot as well. It's become so layered with so many things, and that's great, and it can be really helpful, but it can also be a hindrance. Whereas stripping things back to, again, keep it simple, like I said in the first bit, not just with your resources, but with the way that you're sort of viewing it. Don't worry about astrology, don't worry about Kabbalah, don't worry about any sort of esoteric associations. Just, keep it down to earth, keep it grounded. These are just my tips, okay, with how I have come to learn Tarot de Marseille and what I found useful for me. Some people probably want to read the Tarot de Marseille really esoterically, but I feel like that would have to come later. Like when you're learning Rider-Waite-Smith, a lot of people don't jump in straight with the Kabbalah and astrology, right? They're jumping in with like the meanings of the suits and the numbers and sort of keywords and things like that. So that's my tip number 5. And then tip number 6 is practice, practice, practice. You learn by doing, right? Well, most people learn by doing. You don't want to be an armchair tarot reader. You want to be, so I'm just writing a note of a resource that I forgot, and I'm just writing it down because it's, I can't believe I forgot it. It's one of my favorite resources. I'm just adding it to my list. Apologies. So yeah, you want to what was I saying? Practice. That was it. I just had to look down at my notes. Practice, practice, practice. Read for yourself. Read for family. Read for friends. Read for strangers. Read for characters in a TV show or a film or a book. Read for just imaginary people that you make up. There are books of tarot questions that you can buy. You can find tarot questions online on websites, lists of tarot questions on Instagram, not on Instagram, on Pinterest, sorry. I actually bought a book. It's called 1,000 Tarot Questions or 1,001 Tarot. I think it's 1,000 Tarot Questions. I should have probably brought it out for you folks to have a look at. It's, oh no, I lied. It's 2,000. I'm getting it mixed up with 1,001 Tarot Spreads book. I think my brain is getting those confused. 2,000 tarot practice questions. I found this really, really handy. If you're getting like really into your practicing and you don't have many people to read for, I really recommend this. I just sort of, the way I use it is I'll you know, pick a question, and then I tick it with a pencil once I've done it, once I've answered that question. Okay, so practice, practice, practice. And my 7th and final tip, I was trying to think of like a round number like 5 or 10, but I couldn't, so it's 7. And my 7th tip is have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously. Play, try different things. Try reading just table, try reading just image, try marrying them together, try reading you know, the open reading where you're looking at like stories, telling a story. Read them all as one big thing. Read positional spreads, read non-positional spreads. Really play and see what works for you and have fun with it. I only ever read Tarot de Marseille in lines of like 3, 6 or 9. And then I learned about the tirage en croix, which is the tarot in a cross. It's a French reading, and that does have positional meanings, but it only has 5 cards. There are some other versions that add other cards, and I usually do that only using the the trumps, but you can use the entire deck if you want. Sometimes I do use the entire deck, and like I said, sometimes I like to go back round the spread once I've looked at the initial trumps with just the pips and add a pip card to each of those majors for additional information. So yeah, just have a play, have fun, enjoy it. It's meant to be fun, right? So those are my personal tips. You may agree with them, you may not. Take what you like, leave the rest. You do you, right? I'm going to go into the resources, and the first round of resources are going to be books. Now there are loads of tarot books out there now. A lot of them are in French, but some of them are being translated. But I wanted to keep it to like 3 really, like the 3 books that really did it for me. I've since expanded my Tarot de Marseille library, my TdM library, and I have by no means read all of the Tarot de Marseille books. I will also say, like, this is again only related to the things that I have read, things that I have utilized, because I'm trying to show you or give you what has really worked for me, and that might not work for other people. Understandably, we're all different, but for me, the 3 books that really did it for me are Untold Tarot by Caitlin Matthews. The first book that I bought was actually this one, which is going to be the second one I recommend, but I actually found it a bit overwhelming, and then I bought this, and I had already started reading this, and I bought this, and I ended up tearing through this whole book in like a couple of days. So I mean the number of tabs. It is highlighted to Hellenbach, whoever Hellenbach is. It's got, as you can see, it's got post-its in there with notes. It's got loads of highlighting. It's got tabs up the wazoo. And this book is great. It's not too thick. This is why I'm recommending it. It's easy to read. It's quick to read. It's not too, it's not too thick. It's really well structured. So I'm just trying to find pages. It has colour pictures, and it also tells you what all of the decks are. So if a particular deck in these pictures takes your fancy, because Caitlin uses all sorts of different decks, you'll be able to look up the deck and see if it's available. She also has different ways of reading. She does like a bit more of a sort of cartomancy, playing card style pip reading, as well as talking about things like eye rhymes and the open reading. So she gives you a couple of different ways to read it, and you can take one way of reading and use that, take the other way of reading and use that, or you can combine them. She goes into numbers, and she talks about like playing card style reading, and she has spreads. I'm just trying to find, like, she'll give examples of spreads, as well as yeah, it's just written card combinations and things like that. I just find it really, really useful. I just really, really like it. I would say start with this before you jump into anything that's too meaty or too heavy. This will serve you pretty well, I'd say. Then my second option, some people just go with this, that's fine. Like, some people want to read a whole tome. I just found, for me, I wanted to jump straight in, and this really helped me. So Marseille Tarot Revealed by Yoav Ben-Dov. This is the mass-produced one. It originally was called, I can't remember what it used to be called, but it used to have a slightly different title, and it was self-published by Yoav Ben-Dov. This copy is put out by Llewellyn. And this is also a great book. You'll see I've highlighted it to Hellenbach, whoever Hellenbach is. I really like, you've got good chunky bits of meanings. You've got, for each of the cards, as well as the pips, he talks about the different, he talks about table and image that I've already gone over. He gives reading examples. Again, reading examples are really, really handy. And what I also like is you then get a quick reference bit at the back of the book. So you don't have to read, if you're doing a reading and you pull the sun card and you don't want to read the whole lot. I mean, usually what I do is I would read the bits that I've highlighted, because that's the bit that's resonated. But you have like quick reference meanings for all of the cards in the back, which is really, really handy, so you can go for either. I would say, if you were only to get one of these books, I would go with this one, but otherwise, if you can spring for both, or you just want to like jump in, I would say this. And the third book I'm going to recommend is a workbook. Excuse me. And I said I was going to mention Tom Benjamin. Tarot on Earth by Tom Benjamin. This book really, really helped. I also did an online class that is no longer available, which was like a sort of built upon version of this book. But this book, it's this really, really handy. This book will get you doing. It will get you practicing. It will get you thinking. It will get you working out what you think. So people always say, oh, I get so confused with the numerology for Tarot de Marseille, because I feel it really does differ in some senses, not completely, but there are some differences for me from the, some for me, like the twos are very similar for me, both Marseille and Smith-Waite, but then some of the other ones are very different for me, like the 8 in the Smith-Waite and the Marseille are quite different for me, for example. This book was what really had me thinking, oh, okay, wow, right? Because what Tom gets you to do is to search out loads of different forms of numerology, different schools of numerology in different tarot books or different places, and compile it, and then read through them all, and then work out what resonates with you, right? So for example, I enjoy Camelia Elias. I read earlier this year, I read her Marseille tarot Towards the Art of Reading, I think it's called. And her numerology and her associations with the Marseille are very playing card, cartomantic, old school fortune tellery meanings. Mine are different to hers, but as she says in that book, and what most people will say, as long as you find something that works for you, a system that works for you, and you stick to it, and as long as there's some sort of logic that you can point out in it, then that's fine, right? So my numerology and my associations are somewhat different to Camellia Elias's, but we have our systems and we stick to it, right? We're not chopping and changing. I don't sometimes use my own associations and then throw in some of Camellia Elias's, you know what I mean? I have my own. I mean, some of her ideas have made their way into my reading, but what I mean is I've sort of evolved my own system over time, and that only comes with time, and that is something that I have revisited, particularly the numerology. I first tackled it when I did this back in 2018. I then tackled it again in 2020 when I did the online class. I then tackled it again last year, last spring, so a couple of years later, and I tackled it this spring because I was writing, I was going back to a little white book that I created for myself and really distilling it, and I did talk about that in some videos as well. So those would be my 3 books that I would recommend. Other sources are available, but these are my personal ones, all right? So I'm just going to pop them over there out of the way, and I'm going to have a sip of tea because it's going to go cold. Word of caution. Some people will recommend Jodorowsky's book. I personally will not work with anything to do with Jodorowsky. I find him incredibly problematic. I just don't like him. As in, like, not problematic from a tarot perspective, but I would also say he is kind of problematic for me from a tarot perspective because he's layered a lot of sort of esoteric stuff on top of tarot alongside lots of other people who have done that as well. But for me, I don't read like that, but also he's problematic with regards to him personally as a person. And as a filmmaker. So word of warning, I will, you know, if you want to go look that up, then you can, but I will not be recommended Jodorowsky. And actually, Yoav Ben-Dov was a student of Jodorowsky, and so I feel like Yoav Ben-Dov took what he learned, formed his own opinions, made his own ideas, and I actually really like a lot of what Yoav Ben-Dov says about the Tarot de Marseille. Some of it is, or a bunch of it is couched in sort of binary, gendered language and things like that. But again, these are things that we are trying to push forward and evolve, and so as long as you keep that in mind with a lot of resources and a lot of even everyday modern I'm reading a current tarot book right now which heavily uses gendered stuff, like gendered, it talks about divine feminine energy and masculine energy, and it's winding me up, something chronic. Thankfully, I'm also reading Finding the Fool, which is a queer and inclusive tarot book, so I read a little bit of the book that makes me a bit annoyed, and then I read a little bit of Finding the Fool to sort of calm me down. Just because when anyone starts to mention feminine energy, my eye starts twitching because I'm like, but what does that really mean though? Because I think it's bullshit. There, I said it. I've said it a lot actually. I don't know why I'm saying it like it's news to anyone that I think that way. Okay, so we're going to go on from books onto YouTube channels. So not everyone works well with books. Not everyone can read. It can, like, a lot of people will say, well, you have to read books. Well, that's kind of ableist and classist. Not everyone can afford books. Not everyone has the capacity to read. I've certainly gone through phases and do still struggle to read a lot due to brain fog and squirrel brain, and some people just don't have the time or headspace to read, and some people learn better by reading, some people learn better by listening. So we're gonna have some YouTube channels. So straight off the bat, Tom Benjamin, I've already said I'm going to be mentioning him a few times. His channel, I've learned loads off of him over the years to do with Tarot de Marseille. I can't point to any one specific video because there's a few that have come up over the years, but I really recommend him. Another channel I really enjoy is Magdalena over at Wharf of Coins. She does tarot demonstrations. She talks about how she reads Marseille, and just a really stripped back, straightforward, easy to understand way of reading the tarot. Marilyn from Tarot Clarity is another channel that I really enjoy. I love Marilyn. She is incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly skilled. She does lots of demonstration readings, which is really, really helpful. I find watching and listening to demonstration readings really useful when it comes to tying, like seeing how you take that table and you take that image idea and put it in the context of a question and a spread. Really, really good stuff. So again, Marilyn from Tarot Clarity. And another one that I've been enjoying quite a bit over the last, like maybe since the end of last year, beginning of this year, is 78 Puertas, or 78 Puertas, which is 78 doors in English. It's a Spanish channel. They have both English and Spanish videos. If you speak Spanish, then obviously you can watch the Spanish videos. If you only speak English, there are resources there for you as well. And they also, actually, I saw a video from them where they talk about learning the pips first as well, which I thought was really, really good. And actually Jack Chanak in his Tarot for Real Life, which is a Rider-Waite-Smith based book, also tackles all of the minor arcana first as well. So I really enjoy that approach. So those are the, like, there's other YouTube channels, but these are the ones that I you know, especially the first three were the ones that I you know, find really, really good for learning. The 78 Puertas one is one that I've found more recently, so it's had less of an effect on my learning, obviously. Then I'm going to go on to Instagram accounts, because of course some people, I mean, so you might want all of these resources, but some people like to look at pictures and read people's demonstration readings. And the people that I really enjoy doing this, again, Tom Benjamin Tarot. Yes, am I a Tom Benjamin fangirl? Yes. It's obvious. I really rate Tom Benjamin's reading style and his practice, his ethics, everything. And he's just a lovely guy. I also really love Duff Tarot. Duff Tarot gives really excellent three card readings, showing the working of how they've come to their conclusion, how, you know, really, really good stuff. If you like to see how it's all put together, again, another one, Duff Tarot. Coming from the French side, we have Serge Pirot, or Serge Pirot. I'm not quite sure how to say that. Keep meaning to ask my French neighbour. He has more recently been doing readings on his Instagram account with Lenormand and with more Smith-Waite based decks. But if you go back through his back catalogue of photos on his grid, you will see his grid. What am I, a Generation Z? On the grid, on the gram. He's got more examples of reading with Tarot de Marseille, and I will be mentioning him again later because there's some other resource from him that I have. My friend Lisa, my dear friend Lisa over at the Witcher List, she gives really good Tarot de Marseille. Sometimes she will do one card interpretations, sometimes she'll do 2 or 3. Really, I love the way that Lisa writes. She also has a really great Substack blog that I rate. I just love her. She's awesome. And the final one is Marty's Musings, which is Martin. He again does a mixture of, you know, reading with Smith-Waite and reading with Oracle and reading with pip decks. But yeah, Martin of Marty's Musings is another one, and it's very aesthetically pleasing. He does beautiful layouts, beautiful flat lay photography for all of his posts. I don't know how he does it or has the time, but I'm always impressed. It's a feast for the eyes, so go check that out. I'm now going to go on to the blogs that I recommend. So bringing Serge Pirot back into the list, we have his blog cartomancia.com. the last time I checked, which was a couple of weeks ago, he hadn't posted anything for a while. He has a mixture of both Tarot de Marseille and Lenormand stuff, but his whole back catalogue of blog posts are there. He does really good reading demonstrations. There's the Tirage en Croix and a couple of different other spreads that he uses, and just the way that he talks about the tarot. It's available in both English and French. So again, if you speak French, if you read French, you'll be able to read it in the original French, or in the, actually I think he's based in New York now. I think he's lived in New York a long time, but he writes, being a Frenchman, he writes his blog in both French and English. So that's one of the blogs. One of the blogs that I mentioned earlier, is Jack Chanick's Jack of Wands blog, and specifically because he has, so far this year, he's been doing a deep dive into the Tarot de Marseille. And if you are if you're new to Tarot de Marseille, TDM, you're going to find this really helpful, because he is coming from a complete blank slate. He's forgetting everything he knows about all the other tarot systems that he reads with, and he is tackling it. And it's really good. It's really good. I'm really enjoying it. So that's something that you can jump in on, read the blog posts up to date, and something he'll be continuing throughout the year, I imagine. Another really great blog is blog or website Tarot Heritage. Has a load of posts about reading pip decks, reading Tarot de Marseille. You'll be able to search their blog posts, and they'll break things down into like numbers and courts, and reading the trumps and putting things together, and the open reading. It's all on there. It's all there. So those are the three main blogs that I would recommend. The resource that I wrote down quickly, because it had flown out of my head when I was writing my notes, is a TikTok account. You don't have to, I just watch it on my laptop. I don't have TikTok on my phone, and it's Z Manzilla. If you want a masterclass in open reading, check out this guy, specifically his Sesamero tarot, his Sesamero readings. So basically what he did is he bought 3 packs of Sesame Street flashcards that are used to teach children. I think he's got colours, shapes and numbers. He took the ones that he liked and he formed like a Sesame Street tarot deck. He devised a system. What do these colours mean? What do these shapes mean? He's got his own numerology, and then people ask him questions on TikTok, and he does 3 card readings using the Sesamero. And when I say it is genius, I mean that. It is genius. He is so good at what he does, and it's fun as well. He's a really fun guy. He's got loads of other stuff on his TikTok account as well, various other forms of divination. There's stuff about gaming and D&D and wrestling and all sorts of stuff. But if you're just looking here for TDM stuff, I would say he's Sesamero. You'll be able to tell from the video thumbnail, because it will have like Sesame Street cards. It'll be really easy to see which is which. Really recommend that. It's a fun time. Okay, the final part of the deck is because I read the word deck as I said that. The final part of the video is decks to recommend. Remember, all Tarot de Marseille are pip decks, but not all pip decks are Tarot de Marseille. I'm just going to reiterate that. Now, many people find Tarot de Marseille ugly. That's fair. I used to find them ugly as well. I actually now find them incredibly beautiful. They grew on me. And also a lot of people find that they don't want to come to Tarot de Marseille because of the system being so inherently tied to, you know, patriarchal, colonial, Christian roots, you know, and it sort of has those gender binaries, and everyone in the deck is white, and all those, you know, very valid criticisms of the Tarot de Marseille. The Smith way has really benefited especially recently, over it being sort of really rethought and tackled and diversified, and we've got queer folks and disabled folks and people of colour making Smith way, and we're now starting to see that trickle into Tarot de Marseille, which I'm really excited about, because it's the system I like the most. So it's important to remember that Tarot de Marseille is the people's Marseille though, right? So although it comes from this structure, tarot evolves, right? And it's the Tarot de Marseille is the people's tarot. And what I mean by that is the Visconti tarots and the Madrones, the beautiful gold gilded Italian tarots that kicked everything off, those were created for very rich families, right? They were not accessible to the masses, and actually some of those extant cards have little pinholes at the very center top of them, which indicates that they may very well have been pinned up and displayed like art pieces, right? So although they are like a game, they were also used as like art or sort of status symbols. When you start getting these wood block printed, mass produced Tarot de Marseille that were, you know, printed all across large parts of, you know, we had them obviously Marseille, France, in Austria, in Switzerland, I believe, in Italy, obviously, Piedmont and what have you. And we have so many, this is the thing, there are so many different types of traditional tarots. You've got type 1, this video is not tackling tarot history, it is not tackling all of the different kinds of historic and traditional tarots. We're not looking at type 1, we're not looking at type 2, we're not looking what is a Noble, a Dodal, a Camoin, we're not looking at all of that, right? You just pick a deck that you like, okay? So if you're looking for a classic tarot, you might want a Jean Noble or a Jean Dodal, or a do you know what, I've just realized actually I pulled out my summer decks, but I didn't pull them out, so I'm just going to pause and come back because I just want to show you some examples. Okay, apologies for that, I wasn't as organized as I thought I was. Okay, story of my life. Probably should have done that before I unpause the bloody video, but there you go. Okay, so a Jean Noble. These are going to be 3 examples of sort of quite classic looking tarot decks. So this is a Jean Noble. This one is by Jean-Claude Flournoy, and you can get it from his website. I will put links to everything in the description box for everything that I've mentioned here, okay? So I really like the Jean Noble because of the size. It's quite small, as you can see, compared to maybe something that's a bit bigger. And you will notice that a lot of the classic Tarot de Marseille they won't have rounded corners, because the traditional French decks, the traditional Marseille decks, sorry, they had sharp corners, they didn't round the corners. So yeah, this is a classic Noble back, and this is one of the oldest Tarot de Marseille decks out there, if not the oldest, I can't remember. If you see a little dot, the dot, I put that there myself to denote what the top and the bottom of the deck is, so the dot I always put at the bottom. Interestingly, this is one of the 3s where I think, was it this way when it came? I can't remember, where the third coin is at the bottom. A lot of them are the third coin is at the top. But you know, I don't read with reversals as much as I used to. Sometimes I do. Again, that bit about play, try reversals, try without reversals, see what sticks, what doesn't. So yeah, this is a very sort of, I like the really sort of creamy background. There's also a Jean Dodal available from the from Jean-Claude Flournoy's shop. Yves Renaud is another person who creates classic decks. I really want the Francois Gasmont that he does. It's beautiful. I love the colours, the greens in that one. If you're looking for a US, North American based, you might want to try, oh my god, my brain, it just was in my head and then it just dropped out of my head. Artisan Tarot do a lot of classic tarot decks as well as some other fun ones, or you can buy independent ones, and well, they are independent, you know what I mean. So mass-produced deck, these are 2 mass-produced Tarot de Marseille. So this is the CBD Marseille, it stands for the Camoin Ben-Dov, and yes, if you recognise Ben-Dov, Ben-Dov is in Yoav Ben-Dov of this book. He passed away a few years ago now, but he created a sort of tidied up version of this Camoin deck, which was based off of, I can't remember off the top of my head, a faithful reproduction of the traditional tarot cards based on the most influential and esteemed deck published by Nicolas Conver in Marseille, 1760. Oh, it's the Conver Ben-Dov, not the Camoin Ben-Dov. I keep getting mixed up. So it's a Conver deck. Again, I'm not going into all the different types, but this one has very, like, it, oh, that's gotten all mixed up. This one has, again, has very clear, crisp lines, much like the Jean Noblet by Dodal. Some people want their deck to look more sort of old, so you can also get straight up facsimiles of existing old cards, so they have sort of all the colors out of the line and the wonkiness and, you know, all of that good stuff as well. I don't really have any of those. I would like a couple of sort of more facsimile decks, but I don't own any. So you might prefer the crisp lines, you might prefer the fuzzy lines, but go whatever works for you. And another thought to give you another example, which is Le Tarot de Marseille, and this is the Fournier company one. I've trimmed mine, and this is a really fun one because it's been recolored. So what I find really handy is that you get, so this is the sword suit and all the cards are blue. You've got cups and all the cards are orange. And you've got green for the baton. And then let me find where are you? And then the coins have like a sort of a yellowy tone to them. So they all, when you're laying out like maybe, you know, 9 cards in a portrait spread or a 9 card box spread, it starts to make it quite easy to pinpoint the suits quite quickly. And if you're not a fan of just all that bright blank white space, then it's just another option. But yes, this is trimmed down. I trimmed the main border off, so it will have a full white border on it, which is also nice actually. I've come back round to not minding borders so much. So those are more sort of classic-y decks, and there are loads of other options. I didn't want to like start showing you tons and tons of decks. If you want to see my entire pip deck collection, I will try to remember to link below the video I made a couple of months, 2 or 3 months ago, and I think it's called So You Think TdM is Ugly or something, and it's me showing loads of my beautiful Tarot de Marseille decks. I don't know if it's my entire TdM collection, but it's lots of the like really pretty, aesthetically pleasing ones. Okay, you might want a modern Tarot de Marseille, right? Which is also valid. Again, that video will have more modern Tarot de Marseille as well. And the reason being the things that I mentioned earlier. You want to see queer people, you want to see people of colour, you want to see disability, all very valid and all very fair, right? So one of them is the Diverse Tarot de Marseille. This is a make playing cards deck. I got this earlier this year, and the reason I was really drawn to this was not only just because it's something sort of, it's a redrawing to make the deck more diverse. It's actually got the really lovely colours. All the colours have been chosen very deliberately by the creator to denote certain meanings. She has a video where she talks about it on her channel. But also it was the first like classic Marseille that had the colour purples, like purples and lavenders in it, and like I love me some purple. Like look at this golden yellow, a golden purpley. It's like it's not showing up on the camera, it looks more blue on camera, but it's a really lovely purple, a royal purple. Wow, it does look really blue on my camera. Weird. You know, we've got pink and teal there. So yeah, this is we've got people of colour featured, which I think is really important. Just trying to find, you know, so it's, yeah, it's more diverse. So that's an option if you're looking for a more diverse deck. Another option, Tom Benjamin. Again, take a shot. Tom Benjamin did a make playing cards deck. This is called the Multi Marseille. This is based on the Jean Noblet. That rhymes again. As you can see, so it's quite similar. He's redrawn the Noblet backs himself. And again, this has been redrawn. It's a redrawn sort of Marseille, and it features people of colour, people of the global majority, essentially. It's really fun. We also get, you know, we've got wheelchair users featured. We've got so I'm just trying to find where was it? I think it was in this deck. Oh, here we go. The world card has vitiligo, which I really appreciate seeing the inclusion of someone with vitiligo. Yeah, it's just more inclusive, which I am a fan of, and this is one of my go-to Marseille decks. I love this deck so much. It's always out. ready to read. So there's that one. And then another one I will show you, which you've already seen a little sneaky peek of, is the Squid Cake Marseille. So these two are both make playing cards and are independently produced. The next two I'm going to show you are mass market. So this is the mass market version of the Squid Cake Marseille. Mind you, on saying that, I do have my indie version of the deck in the box. But it's pretty much the same, except the it's even easier to learn because all of the minors, all of the pips actually have titles on them as well. It doesn't have the Roman numerals as well. It'll say 2 of swords or 2 of épées. I can't remember if it's in French or not. But the reason I like this, again, it's a smaller size, which I really like. It's more noblesse sized. And it's really fun and playful whilst also really sticking to, you know, so instead of on a horse, we've got an octopus arm. And instead of like a goblet, it's a coffee mug. So, you know, if you're looking for something way more modern, so here we have temperance and they're pouring some coffee back and forth, and instead of angel wings, they have like little bat wings. We have like, look at the oxalotl. Come on, camera. Look at the oxalotl. I love it. It's just so cute and fun, and I mean, the devil's really cute and fuzzy and looks like one of the monsters from the Jess Roller's Monster Le Normand. Sorry, yeah, this is created by Jess Roller. I can never remember the name of the creator for this one, but I'll put that all down below for you. So yeah, and what I really rate about this deck as well is the book. So the book has a picture of each card, it then has keywords, and then it goes sort of, it'll give you a bit of meaning, but then it also sort of gives a little bit of the like gives you like visually what it looks like. So you've got that image, you know, the table and then image situation going on in this book. Obviously the descriptions are really small, and I've seen people saying they still don't understand the numerology or the, you know, and I've like, for people who are using this as their only resource, I would say you probably need at least one of the other books that I've mentioned. This is just a really good on the like go, like grab and sort of read. And again, this is one of the books that I use all the time now as just a go-to. I usually have this and this together. Okay, so that, and then one other deck I will show you. This is getting quite long. I wanted to wrap this up within an hour. Is the Le Tarot Archetypal by Dystopia Tinta. It is a French deck, and it's awesome. The artwork is called Tarot Archetypal because it's very stripped back. It is very stylized. It has a wonderfully sort of, I just love the colour palette, and every single person in it is black, and I really love that because there are 12 freaking million decks that have just white people. So yeah, let's redress the balance and have a deck of just black folks in, you know. So this is not so much as a classic Marseille in the sense that a lot of the major arcana are changed up. But if you're already coming from a tarot background, the majors are going to be less of an issue for you than the pips, and the pips are Marseille. So here you can see you've got the ones there in a classic arrangement. You have, where did that just go? I just had that, the cups here in a classic arrangement, stylized in the own art style of this particular artist, yes, but you know, the horses are, the courts are a bit different, so the knight doesn't actually have a knight in it, just the horse. But I you know, I still really appreciate this. Okay, so those are just some examples of like more contemporary or diverse Marseille, for those of you looking for that kind of thing. And we do have some other Tarot de Marseille coming up. So the Game Marseille by Charlie Claire Burgess, who created the Fifth Spirit Tarot, they are currently running, their Kickstarter was launched a week ago today actually, I believe, for their Game Marseille. So it is a Marseille deck, but make it gay. And they're currently, I really recommend you following them on Instagram. They're called The Word Witch on Instagram. They are currently doing lots of little videos about how to read the Tarot de Marseille. How prescient, what perfect timing, right? So you can always go and check their videos out as well. Again, it'll all be in the description down below. And if you want a really queer, inclusive, Marseille deck. That Kickstarter is still going, so you can still back that. Another deck that is hopefully coming soon is the reworked version of the Estrella Tarot by Ash Estrella. She is a creator of colour, and she's got a really wonderful, colourful, fun, modern Marseille deck, and she's working on the second version, the second edition, I think, at the moment, and I'm hoping that that will be out later in the year, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And Auntie Kay, she is currently in the process of creating her own Marseille, and she is coming at it from an indigenous, decolonial, frame of mind, frame set, like attitude, not attitude, sort of mindset. That's the I couldn't find the right word. She's really tackling the patriarchal colonialist structures that you find in the Tarot de Marseille and out obviously in the systems of the wider world, and is sort of reframing loads of the cards, and she's been sharing those up on her Instagram. So again, I will link her account down below so that you can keep up to date with that for when that's all good to go. But I really think that we need more decks like this. It's a really valuable and necessary perspective, because we've had this perspective from a like straight white guy forever. We need a more diverse voices, more diverse points of view, and we've done it with the Smith way. We can do it with the Marseille. I truly believe that, especially as it is the people's tarot. It can evolve with us. It can grow and change, and it's all good. Okay, so these are by no means all of the Tarot de Marseille resources out there ever. These are ones that I recommend. If you have any recommendations for folks, pop them in the description, pop them in the comments down below. If you have any resources for me as well for anything, whether it's a podcast, a Tarot de Marseille podcast, a channel, a book, a deck, especially if it is from a creator of colour, BIPOC folks. I really want to read. I want to see Tarot de Marseille sources from BIPOC folk, people of the global majority. I want to hear Black voices. I want to hear Southeast Asian voices. I want to hear Middle Eastern voices. I want to hear South American voices. I want to hear indigenous voices from all over the world that read tarot. I want their podcasts, I want their decks, I want their books. So from a purely selfish point of view, like, put them down below for myself as well as for everyone else, because I'm not the font of all knowledge. I don't know. I want to see from disabled folks as well. Ableism is something that gets really, like, disability activism. Ableism is a real big problem in an ongoing panini, and it's one of the things that actually gets forgotten about a lot. So I'd like to see it from disabled folks' perspective as well. Yeah, let me know if this is useful, if this is helpful for you, if you found if you watch this video and then you get any of these resources and you come back and you found them helpful, let me know, right? Because that's why I made this video. I want to know if folks are jiving with this, if this has been helpful. That's the reason that this video is going to be up. Okay, so it's an hour, it's a long one, but I do have a tendency to waffle. Silly naive me was like 30-40 minutes tops. I always underestimate rather how long a video will take when I've got like a specific thing that I'm setting out to do, a specific thing. But hey ho, like I said, there will be chapters, or there should be chapters that you can jump to bits. So if you do bookmark this and you want to come back to this, you can jump to the chapters, and then everything will also be linked in the description box. But I thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you watching and taking the time to comment, whether it's to say that you enjoyed this or to give resources to myself or anyone else in the comments. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that, and I hope that you are happy and healthy and safe wherever you are. Sending you so much love, and I will see you in the next one. Ciao.